Norah sat quietly at the end of the long glass table, her laptop open, fingers gently resting on the keyboard. The meeting room was packed. The whole data team was there, talking, laughing, sipping coffee from paper cups. But Norah didn't say a word. She never did, unless it was about work. Derek, the team lead, stood in front of the big screen, holding a printed report, her report. His voice was loud, sharp. "This," he said, waving the report in the air, "is a joke." The room went quiet. "She calls this data analysis? This is a waste of time. Useless." He threw the papers on the table in front of her. Norah's heart pounded. Her hands shook. She looked up slowly. People stared at her, some with blank faces, others hiding small smiles. I followed the brief," she said softly. Derek laughed. "Oh, please. You think you're the only one who can work with numbers? You probably only got this job because someone upstairs felt sorry for you." A few people chuckled. "I double-checked everything," Norah said, trying to keep her voice steady. "There's a pattern in the pipeline. I flagged it." "Enough," Derek snapped. "Don't embarrass yourself further." She fell silent. No one spoke up for her. Not one person. Her eyes moved across the room and stopped at the back. Standing there, half in shadow, was Mr. Maxwell, the CEO, the founder. Tall, quiet, sharp-eyed. No one else noticed him. But Norah did. Her face burned. She lowered her head, gathered her papers with shaking hands, and closed her laptop. She couldn't sit there any longer. She stood up, ready to leave, tears blurring her vision. Then from the back of the room came a voice. "Norah." Clear, calm, strong. Everyone turned. Mr. Maxwell stepped forward, holding something in his hand. It was her report. Norah froze. Her name still hung in the air. And suddenly, the entire room was silent in a different way. Norah was 29 years old and had taught herself everything she knew about data and technology. She didn't go to any fancy school. She learned from free online courses, old laptops, and long nights. She came from a small apartment in Agege, a busy part of Lagos. She was the first person in her family to ever work in a big corporate office. To many, that alone was success. But for Norah, it was just the beginning. Her mother had been sick for a long time. Breathing problems, endless hospital visits, medicine that cost more than they could afford. And then there was her younger brother, Dio, still in school, full of dreams. Norah paid his fees, bought his books, and told him not to worry. "Focus on your studies," she always said. But sometimes, she heard him on the phone with friends saying, "My sister will make it big soon. You'll see." Every weekday, Norah woke up before the sun. She dressed quietly, packed her lunch, and left for work. It took her almost 2 hours to reach the office. 2 buses, sometimes 3, depending on traffic. She used those rides to revise code, watch tutorials on her phone, or close her eyes and rest before a long day. At work, she didn't talk much. She stayed in her corner, focused on her screen. She finished tasks before deadlines. She fixed problems no one else noticed. But she was quiet, didn't gossip, and never joined the after-hours drinks or birthday cakes in the break room. People said she was cold or shy. Truth was, she was tired, always thinking about bills, rent, her mother's next checkup. She didn't have time to play office games. Derek, her team lead, noticed her, but not in a good way. He acted like the king of the team. Loud, confident, always laughing with the managers. But he didn't like Norah, especially not after that day a few months ago, when a regional manager sent out an email praising her for saving a project that was about to fail. It was a big data pipeline issue. People had tried to fix it for weeks. Norah fixed it in 2 days. After that, Derek changed. He gave her less credit, spoke over her in meetings, started acting like she didn't exist. But Norah kept going. She didn't need praise. She just needed the job. Sometimes she ate lunch alone in the hallway. Sometimes she skipped lunch completely and sent the money home. People walked past her without a glance. She listened quietly in meetings while others took the spotlight. She sent in her reports early and got no reply. Still, she stayed late when needed. She asked for no favors. She believed her work would speak for her. But in the office world, that wasn't always enough. The worst part was knowing she had ideas, big ones, smart ones. But no one listened. She had found patterns in the company's data that could save time and money. She wrote a report, clean and detailed. She sent it to Derek with a note. "I think this could help improve the monthly reports." He didn't reply. A week later, he brought it to the team meeting, but not to praise it. He mocked it, called it useless, said it was badly written, said it looked like someone with no experience had done it. Norah sat there, frozen. That was the moment everything changed. She had always been invisible, until now. Mr. Maxwell stepped fully into the room, his polished shoes silent on the floor. Everyone was still looking at Norah, confused, unsure why the CEO had just called her name. "Norah," he said again, this time stepping closer. Derek looked around, then quickly stood straighter. "Sir, good morning. We were just—" Mr. Maxwell didn't even glance at him. "Derek, leave the room." There was silence. People blinked. "Sir?" Derek asked, surprised. "I said leave the room," Mr. Maxwell repeated calmly, but firmly. Derek's mouth opened, then closed. He looked like he wanted to say something, but instead, he grabbed his tablet and walked out of the room stiffly. Now it was just Mr. Maxwell, Norah, and the team. He held up a printed report. Her report. This report, he said, turning slightly to face the group, was not just good, it was correct. Norah didn't just find a serious issue in our data flow, she created a solution. He paused, then looked directly at Norah. "We were about to pay an outside firm millions to do what you've already done." Norah felt like the air had left the room. She stared at him, unsure if she had heard right. "You saw the pattern. You fixed it, quietly, without asking for credit," Mr. Maxwell continued. "That kind of work speaks for itself, and I've been watching." People in the room shifted in their chairs. Some looked at her with surprise, others with new interest. "Norah," he said, his voice now lower, "just for her. As of today, you've been reassigned. You'll report directly to me." She blinked. "Sir, there's a confidential project I'm overseeing. High level, time sensitive. I want you on it." For a second, she didn't move. Was this real? Mr. Maxwell gave her a small nod, then turned to the rest of the team. "This meeting is over." He left the room, still holding her report. Norah stood there frozen as people began to whisper. Some stared, some avoided her eyes. Someone muttered, "What just happened?" She gathered her things slowly, her mind racing. Just minutes ago, she had been embarrassed in front of everyone. Now, she was being pulled into something big, something that even Derek didn't know about. But deep inside, she also knew something else. This wasn't going to be easy. Derek would be angry. Others would start talking. The office didn't like quiet people rising too fast. And now, everyone had seen it happen. As she walked out of the room, the whispers followed her. She didn't look back. Norah's new office was on the top floor, where the senior staff worked. It was quiet, cold, and nothing like the space she had shared with her team downstairs. Her desk was bigger. Her new laptop was faster. She now had access to confidential files, private company dashboards, and high-level data no one else on her old team could see. The day she moved up, no one said a word to her. No congratulations, no questions, just long stares and whispers when she walked by. Mr. Maxwell wasn't always around. He travelled often. When he was in the office, he gave her clear instructions, trusted her work, and treated her with respect. But when he was gone, things felt different, colder, harder. At first, she thought it was just in her head, but soon, she saw it clearly. She started getting left out of important group emails. People in other departments forgot to invite her to meetings she was supposed to attend. Sometimes she walked into a room and the conversation would stop. People avoided her eyes. Others stared too long with that look, the one that said they'd heard something about her. One afternoon she walked past the pantry and overheard two junior analysts talking. "I heard she's only up there because she's close with Mr. Maxwell." As in, close. "Please, you think a quiet girl like that could move up so fast by just doing spreadsheets?" They didn't see her standing by the door. She quietly turned away before they noticed. Her hands shook as she went back to her desk. She wanted to scream, but she didn't. She just worked harder, stayed longer, sent in reports with extra detail, checked everything twice. But still, the looks didn't stop. The whispers grew louder. And Derek? He had returned to the team downstairs like nothing had happened, but he didn't stay quiet. He smiled at her when they passed in the hallway. A cold, fake smile. Then came the messages from her old team members. Some friendly, some strange. "Are you really reporting directly to Maxwell? Must be nice having a shortcut to the top." Even her teammates started to pull away. The few who once greeted her now barely nodded. At home, Things were no better. Her mother's cough had worsened. She needed another round of treatment, more scans. The hospital bills were stacking up. Norah had already borrowed money from her savings. Her brother Dio had stopped asking her how she was. He only asked, "How's work? You're still safe, right?" She smiled and lied. Yes, all good, but it wasn't. One evening, long after everyone had left the office, Norah stayed behind to finish a report. It was almost 9 p.m. The cleaning staff had come and gone. She stretched her back and stood up to leave when she noticed something on the floor near the door. A small black flash drive. There was no note, no sign of who left it, just the drive. She looked around. The hallway was empty. Slowly, she plugged it into her laptop. There was only one file on it, a short video clip from the office security system. It showed Derek. The footage was clear. It was him, in her old office, sitting at her old desk. She watched closely. He was entering something into her computer. Then he pulled out a flash drive of his own, plugged it in, and copied files. She froze. Her heart pounded. He had accessed her work, without permission, while pretending she was incompetent. While the rumors about her spread, she leaned back in her chair, suddenly cold all over. Her thoughts raced. Did he steal her work? Was he trying to ruin her reputation? What if he planted something? Mr. Maxwell was out of town for the week. She couldn't reach him easily, and even if she could, would people believe her? She was already being called names, already being watched. Norah sat there, in the dim light of her office, staring at the screen. She thought about her mother, coughing softly in her sleep, her brother, dreaming big dreams she promised to support, and herself, tired, isolated, and holding in more than she could carry. She had proof, real evidence, but using it could cause a storm. It could cost her everything, or fix everything. If she stayed silent, Derek might win, the lies might grow, and her work, her future might disappear. But if she spoke up, she risked more whispers, more blame, maybe even her job. Norah looked at the flash drive again. She took a deep breath. The choice was hers. Norah didn't sleep that night. Her mind kept spinning with fear, anger, and a quiet kind of strength she hadn't felt before. She knew what she had to do, even if it scared her. She spent the next few days carefully gathering every piece of proof she could find. She searched through her old emails, saved backups of her reports, and matched the timestamps from the security footage with her logins. Then she checked her backup recordings. Weeks ago, she had recorded a few team calls on her phone, just in case. That's when she found it. A short voice clip. Derek, during a casual chat with another team member, laughing and saying, "She's smart, yeah, but too quiet. People like her don't rise unless you give them a little push. Let's see how long she lasts upstairs." I made sure her files looked funny enough for questions to be asked. Her hands trembled as she saved the file. A few days later, she saw Derek in the hallway. She asked him calmly, "Can we talk privately?" He smirked. Of course. They stepped into a small, empty meeting room. Norah shut the door behind them. "I know you accessed my computer," she said softly. Derek laughed. "You're reaching, Norah." "I have footage," she said, meeting his eyes. He raised an eyebrow. "Okay, and?" "I also have a recording of you admitting what you did." His smile dropped for a second, but then returned. "You think people will believe you," he said. "I'm well liked here. You're the one everyone's whispering about. If you push this, I'll make sure HR hears some interesting things about how you got promoted, about your special access to Mr. Maxwell." Her stomach turned, but she didn't move. He leaned closer. "You want to fight me, Norah? Fine. Just know." I hit back harder. She walked out without another word. The next morning, she sent an official request for an internal hearing. She included her evidence and asked that it be handled formally. HR agreed. The meeting was set for the next day. When she entered the boardroom, her heart was pounding, but her face was calm. There were 3 HR managers seated, and to her surprise, Mr. Maxwell was there too, sitting at the head of the table. Derek was already in the room, legs crossed, acting relaxed. Mr. Maxwell looked at her and gave a small nod. HR began. "Norah, we received your request. Please share what you've brought forward." Norah stood, opened her folder, and placed a few printouts on the table. "First, here are screenshots showing unauthorized access to my work computer." She pointed to the security footage stills. "Second, these are email timestamps and file logs. showing someone copied and moved files from my system without my knowledge. The HR team looked at the pages carefully. "Third," she said, her voice steady. "This is proof of altered files that were sent to other departments under my name, but were changed to include wrong formulas and broken code." Derek leaned back in his chair. "This is nonsense." Mr. Maxwell didn't speak. He just stared at Derek. "I did not do any of this," Derek added. "She's clearly bitter and trying to protect herself." HR turned to Norah. "Do you have anything else?" Norah pulled out her phone and pressed play. Derek's voice filled the room. "She's smart, yeah, but too quiet. Let's see how long she lasts upstairs. I made sure her files look funny enough for questions to be asked." Silence. Not a word. Derek's face froze. Mr. Maxwell's eyes narrowed. One of the HR managers leaned forward. "That's your voice, Derek. Do you deny that's you?" Derek opened his mouth, then closed it. Mr. Maxwell stood up slowly. "I trusted you with a team. I expected leadership, not sabotage." Derek tried to speak, but no one was listening anymore. "Effective immediately," Mr. Maxwell said, turning to HR. "He's to be removed from the company, full investigation to follow, and check all of his project work from the last year." HR nodded and stood to escort Derek out. He didn't laugh this time. He didn't say a word. He walked out, red-faced and silent. Norah stood there, still holding her phone, unsure what to do next. Mr. Maxwell looked at her. "Well done," he said quietly. "That took courage." She nodded, her hands still shaking a little, but inside her, something had shifted. She wasn't just surviving anymore. She had spoken and been heard. A few days after the hearing, Norah got an email from Mr. Maxwell's office. It was short and clear. He wanted to meet with her privately. When she arrived, he stood up and smiled. "You've shown strength, Norah, not just with your work, but with how you stood up for yourself," he said. Then he handed her a new offer letter. "Senior data strategist. You'd work closely with me. Full access, bigger pay, bigger role." Norah looked at the paper. It was everything she had once dreamed of. Recognition, position, power. But after a long pause, she gently pushed the letter back across the table. "Thank you," she said, "but I'd like something different." Mr. Maxwell looked curious. "What did you have in mind?" "I want to stay in data," she said, "but I want to use part of my time to mentor young girls from low-income areas. Girls like me, who didn't go to fancy schools, who learned on their own, and just need someone to believe in them." He nodded slowly. "I can make that happen." She smiled. It was the first time in a long while that she felt completely in control of her path. With her new role, Norah didn't sit behind closed doors anymore. She led small sessions for interns, helped organize coding workshops, and even created a program with the company's HR team to find hidden talent in overlooked places. At home, things were getting better too. Her mother's surgery had gone well. The bonus Norah received after the internal audit helped cover the hospital bills. Slowly, her mother began to walk again without help. Her laughter returned to the house. Norah's younger brother, Dio, watched her with wide eyes. "You really did it," he whispered one evening. Norah only smiled and said, "We did it." Back at work, everything had changed. She was no longer invisible. When she entered a room, people listened. She didn't talk much. She never had. But now, when she did, her words carried weight. Old colleagues, even the ones who once ignored her, now came to her for advice. They asked her how she saw things others missed. Some even asked how to deal with difficult team leads. Norah never acted proud or loud. She didn't need to. She had faced the storm. She had walked through fire and come out stronger. Now she stood tall, not because everyone saw her, but because she finally saw herself. Months passed. The company grew stronger, and so did Norah. The air around her had changed. People greeted her with respect. New interns looked up to her, and her voice, once quiet and hidden, now mattered. One sunny afternoon, the company held a big event in a large hall. It was filled with employees, partners, and guests. Mr. Maxwell stood on stage and spoke about growth, honesty, and the power of people who do the right thing, even when it's hard. Then he turned and said, "There's someone here who reminds us what courage looks like. Norah, will you please come up and say a few words?" The room clapped as Norah stood up slowly. Her hands felt cold, but her heart was calm. She walked to the stage, took the mic, and looked at the crowd. For a moment, she stood in silence. Then she spoke. "Sometimes," she said, her voice soft but clear, "the people who work the hardest are the ones most humiliated. I used to think staying quiet was the best way to survive. I thought if I just did my job and stayed out of the way, things would be fine. She looked down, then back up. But I've learned something important. Silence doesn't protect us. Truth does. Speaking up does, even when it's scary. The room was completely still. Everyone was listening. She smiled gently. I'm standing here today not because I shouted the loudest, but because I refused to stay small. And I hope someone out there hears this and knows your voice matters, even if it shakes. She stepped back from the mic. The crowd stood and clapped. In the middle of the room, her brother stood too, clapping proudly, eyes shining with emotion. Norah met his gaze and smiled. Soft, steady, full of peace. She didn't need to say anything else. She was vindicated, empowered, seen. Do you think Norah did the right thing by standing up to Derek and speaking her truth, even when it could have cost her everything? Or should she have stayed silent to protect her job and her family's future? Let me know what you think in the comments. I'd love to hear your thoughts. And if you want more stories like this, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss an update.